Most days, I think it's true to say, faith doesn't feel like fire in the belly, does it? It feels like, well, routine, really. Like we're just showing up for God, like we're just trying to keep it all alive. We're hoping it still means something in the midst of a kind of chaotic life or busy week. Most of the time, faith isn't about mountaintop experiences or major answers to prayer or huge spiritual breakthroughs. So what is discipleship like when life feels ordinary? What is discipleship life when it's a matter of routine, or perhaps life feels a little bit flat? I've been reading Luke 23 verses 50 to 56 this week, that fascinating passage of when Joseph of Arimathea goes to Pilate and requests the body of Jesus after the crucifixion. It's Easter. It's Good Friday, rather, and all the drama of the trial and the crucifixion and the betrayal and all the rest of it, all that's over with now. Jesus is dead, and to all intents and purposes, it feels like heaven has gone quiet. Yes, there are still followers of Jesus, of whom Joseph of Arimathea is one of those, but they're kind of still following out of quiet endurance. They're just trying to maintain their faith, when actually they don't see any hope. They couldn't have any idea what was going to happen on Easter Sunday morning with the resurrection. So they're kind of acting out of routine. They're acting out of maintenance. So Joseph of Arimathea, in that moment when he goes to ask Pilate for Jesus' body, is not kind of caught up in the miracles. He's not caught up in the momentum of the Jesus story. Instead, he's sort of standing in the wreckage, isn't he? He's trying to work out what faith looks like in the here and now. And I think there's three lessons for us from that story of Joseph that help us to live out the Christian life when faith feels like maintenance. And the first is this, that we need to stand up when it feels risky to do so. Discipleship sometimes is about stepping forward when silence might actually be safer. Joseph of Arimathea had status in the community. He had a reputation to protect. It would have been more comfortable for him, easier for him not to step forward to claim Jesus' body. But as Luke says, in chapter 23, it says he had not consented to the execution of Jesus. So he goes publicly to ask Pilate for the body of this criminal. Now, that wasn't quiet faith. That took real courage for him to do that. And sometimes faith in the routine, faith in the ordinary of life, is exhibited by sort of speaking truth in rooms that reward silence. Sometimes it would be easier for us just to stay silent, wouldn't it? And go with the crowd. But there's something about being a follower of Jesus in the day-to-day, which is about us standing up and speaking out for truth, even when it might be uncomfortable to do that. It's about showing integrity in the way we live, even if that isn't good for our image. And sometimes you'll stand up for truth, sometimes you'll stand up for God, and you'll lose. And that's just the way it is. It doesn't mean you were wrong to do it, but God honours those who stand up for truth and who act out of their conviction, even when no one claps, even when no one applauds you for it. And the interesting thing, of course, is that the tomb wouldn't have been ready for Jesus' resurrection unless Joseph of Arimathea had risked being seen and stepping forward. And you notice that Joseph of Arimathea, he doesn't get any sort of results from it. He goes and asks for Jesus' body, and he puts Jesus in the tomb, but there's no voice from heaven that says, "Well done, good and faithful servant." There's no crowds there cheering him on. He just gets on with it because he knows it's the right thing to do. And sometimes faith in the ordinary is about standing up and just getting on with it, even when there's no applause. And that brings us to the second thing, which is this, that we need to serve even when there's nothing to gain. Our faith isn't proven by what we get out of it. Our faith is proven by how we serve even when we get nothing back. Now, Joseph of Arimathea takes the body down and he wraps it in linen and he lays it carefully in the tomb. And the women are there, the women followers of Jesus, and they watch, and then they go home and they prepare spices for the body that they assume is going to stay dead. Now, none of this is strategic thinking, of course. None of it is thinking about ministry for success. They're not kind of thinking, okay, well, if we do this, then God's going to do that. It's not about ministry success. It's just love for love's sake. Their dear friend Jesus had died, and as an act of love, they've decided to behave like this. And sometimes discipleship looks like that. It's about serving. It's about showing love when it's quiet, when no one notices, and when in fact it's not even going to change the outcome. Sometimes discipleship in the ordinary is about caring for someone who can't return the favour. It's about showing up to help people in need, even when you know that they're going to be back again tomorrow and they need that same need met again the next day. That's where love, I think, is stripped of ego. That's where faith is stripped of ego. That's when it looks most like Jesus and like Joseph of Arimathea, of course. It's just about loving for love's sake, even when there's no reward. Thirdly, from this passage in Luke 23, we learn that sometimes faith in the ordinary means resting when we can't see the ending. There's a really interesting part of this story, I think, that the women who have everything ready, they've got the spices ready, they've got the plan of when and how they're going to go and anoint Jesus' body, they then stop. Luke says they rested on the Sabbath according to the commandment. Now, this wasn't laziness, and it wasn't that they were overly tired. It was obedience to God, even in the midst of their grief. We hate waiting, don't we? We want to fix things. We want to be on the move all the time. We want to be doing something. If there's a problem, we want to get it sorted. But you know, some moments in life aren't meant to be fixed. Some moments are just meant to be held. And that's what the women were doing. They were holding this moment in obedience to God. The Sabbath came and they stopped and they paused and they waited. And Sabbath rest is really important in the ordinary of faith, because by stopping and resting one day a week, what we are actually saying is that I don't run my world. God runs my world, and I can stop and I can pause and I can wait, and it's not all going to fall apart because it's not me holding it, it's God holding it. Sabbath rest is about choosing to rest when anxiety demands action. It's a hard truth for us often to hear, isn't it? Because sometimes we might think that being faithful to God is getting on and fixing stuff, when actually being faithful to God might actually mean just stopping and pausing and waiting and handing it back over to Him. That stillness and that pause is very often where God starts to do a new thing in our lives. So Joseph's courage, the women's service and their rest, all of this happens when heaven feels silent, when faith feels like maintenance. And yet that silent moment, that moment when it feels like nothing has really happened, is when God is preparing the resurrection. And I think that's how faith survives in maintenance mode in the ordinary of everyday life. It's about standing up, continuing to act, even when there's a cost to that. It's about serving when there's nothing to gain, and it's about resting and handing everything over to God, even when you can't see the ending. The story of Luke 23 doesn't end with despair. I think it ends with quiet faith. It ends with these faithful disciples in maintenance mode, making room for a future with God that they couldn't anticipate or expect. So maybe That's the primary call on our lives, to live faithfully in the quiet, to keep doing the small, steady things of faith when God seems hidden, because that's the soil in which resurrection grows. Sometimes the holiest thing you can do is not some major miracle or powerful spiritual act. Sometimes the holiest thing you can do is just to stay faithful in the dark and have faith and trust that God is rolling away the stone.